Good morning, everyone. So today we begin reading the Parsha of Mitzorah, which is a continuation of the subject of proper and improper speech. But at the same time, we're now 2 weeks away from Pesach. And the word Pesach literally means Passover, because God passed over the Jewish homes. However, our rabbis also say that the word Pesach could be broken into two words. Pesach, a mouth that speaks. Why? Because we have a commandment every day to remember the Exodus from Egypt. We do it in the Shema, morning and evening. And what distinguishes the holiday of Pesach? There's a special commandment of V'yigadet levincha, to speak to your children, to communicate the story to the next generation. So all year long, memory is enough, it suffices. Mantiskor, you should remember the day you left Egypt. On Pesach, you have to have a Pesach, you have to have a mouth that speaks to the children and elaborates and tells the story, and that's why it says the more you elaborate, the more praiseworthy you are. And that's why it's a good time to not only get ready for the meal of the Seder, but also think about what you're going to tell your children and your grandchildren. What are you going to discuss around your Seder table? And as a matter of fact, the Haggadah gives us help in that department. The Haggadah tells us that you have 4 different children that may attend your Seder. And you have to know how to communicate with each child on their level. You have the wise child, you have the wicked child, you have the simple child, and you have the child that doesn't know how to ask a question. And as we mentioned yesterday, actually, each one of the children, it says, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha. One is wise, one is wicked, one is simple, one doesn't know how to ask a question. And our rabbis discuss, why does it say one is each time? So the Lubavitcher Rebbe says that when you speak to the child, the most important thing to remember is that they have the one Hashem inside them, Echad. Even when you're looking at the wicked child, never forget for a moment that that child has the oneness of Hashem in them, their neshama. And therefore, don't look at them as a Rasha, God forbid. Realize that you have to reach their soul, their neshama, the oneness of Hashem inside of them. But yesterday I shared something else that I want to repeat. And that is that there's another answer given to this question, and that is that it's not that there's 4 different children. One is wise, one is wicked, one is simple, one is not a child who could ask a question. But by saying echad, one is, it's saying that they're all one child. That each one of us goes through 4 different stages of life. When we start, we're like the child who can't ask a question. We were babies. All of us couldn't ask a question at one point. Then we went to the next stage of life, which is we were the simple child. We were young, pure, innocent. We asked simple questions. Our parents gave us answers. Then we got into maybe the teenage years, the adult years, where maybe we started to sow our own seeds a little bit, a little rebellious, challenging what we learned, questioning, doubting, right? A little bit of rebellion. But the goal of life is that we should end up with the wisdom, to come to maturity, to come to wisdom. And therefore we all evolve to different stages of life. And what this teaches us is to have patience and tolerance with others. We weren't always born wise. A lot of things we learn through experience, we learn through hard work. And therefore we should give people the space and the time to evolve in their journey of life. And therefore never write anyone off, but realize that everyone has the potential. I just want to repeat a beautiful story that I shared yesterday. And that is about a young boy who he had many difficulties in his life. As an infant, he was abandoned by his mother. At the age of 7, his father sent him away to a boarding school where his teachers called him the worst student in the class by far. The reports his father received regularly from the dean of the school said, "Your son seems incapable of learning anything." As a punishment for his stupidity, he was frequently beaten by his teachers. When it came time for him to attend high school, he wanted to go to a particular high school, but because of his poor grades, he couldn't get into too many high schools. But there was a high school he wanted to go to, but his father refused to send him there because his father was sure that his son would embarrass him there in the school. Thankfully, he was accepted to a military school, but his father wrote to him of his great disappointment and called him an impudent little idiot. When the boy wrote to his father to share with him some of his progress, the answer came back with the words that you would have thought would have destroyed his self-confidence for the rest of his life. His father wrote, quote, "You are a constant disappointment to me. Not only are you a complete failure in everything that you do, but I see nothing ahead for you but failure. Please do not write to me anymore. I do not wish to hear from you ever again." Who is this young man? He was none other than Winston Churchill. the one who saved civilization from the Nazis in the 20th century. He showed tremendous courage, a brilliant orator, historian, painter, the only person ever to have been nominated for 2 Nobel Prizes at the same time, one for literature and one for peace. And it just shows you never think you could sum someone up and judge them. Realize they have echad, they have the oneness of Hashem in them, they have great potential. And if you were that person who was written off by your parents, by your teachers, believe in yourself enough to know that you could live up to Hashem's plan for your life, not what other people expect or predict your life will be. And so, in conclusion, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would always say, there are 4 children at the Seder, but today there's a 5th child. The 5th child is the one who unfortunately doesn't have a Seder to go to, either because he was never taught about Pesach, he doesn't participate in the Seder. And the Rebbe said the mandate of our generation is to invite the 5th child to the Seder. I'll just conclude with a true story. We have Wendy with us today who worked very hard on Soviet Jewry. And there's a story that one time the head of the New York Federation came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, we have an amazing campaign we want to roll out. These were the days in the 70s when Jews were behind the Iron Curtain, and they said, we want every Jewish family to remember the Jews of silence, the Jews who are trapped behind the Iron Curtain. So we're going to launch this multi-million-dollar campaign with ads in all the major newspapers that every Jewish home should have an empty seat at the Pesach Seder representing the Jews in Russia who cannot attend the Seder. And he came to the Rebbe for his support, for his encouragement, for his involvement in this amazing campaign. And the Rebbe looked at the head of the New York Federation and said, that's a brilliant idea, but I would like to make one modification. Yes, you should have an extra seat at the Seder to remember the Jews of silence. But instead of the seat being empty, you should fill the seat with a Jew who ordinarily wouldn't attend the Seder. And let that Jew represent the Jews of silence. And so that's the goal between now and next week. Yes, do your shopping and do everything you need to do. But I ask everyone, think of some person that maybe won't be at a Seder without your effort. And either invite them to your Seder, or invite them to the Seder that you're going, or at least recommend that they come to the Shul Seder. If they can't afford it, maybe sponsor them. But the point is, there are so many Jews on the night of Seder will not be at a Seder. And therefore, it's our obligation, if we're fortunate enough to know what a Seder is, it's our obligation to bring as many Jews to join in the communal conversation of Judaism that has been going on intergenerational for over 3,000 years.